I don't care where you want to live. I don't care if your friends tell you real estate always goes up. I care about your money. And right now, if you're thinking about buying a house in certain US states, you may be walking straight into the worst financial decision of your life. Not because you're careless, not because you didn't work hard, but because the market doesn't reward emotions, it punishes them. And the difference between winning and getting wiped out has never been optimism. It's been data. Cold, brutal, uncomfortable data. Let me ask you something most people avoid. What happens if 5 years from now, the house you just bought is worth 40% less? What if taxes go up, people move out, businesses leave, and suddenly there's no one left to buy from you? America is splitting in two. Some states are becoming economic powerhouses. Others are quietly turning into financial graveyards. And if you buy in the wrong place at the wrong time, you're not buying a home. You're chaining your future to a declining market. If you care about protecting your wealth, hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, and stay with me. Because the next few minutes could save you from a decision you'll regret for the rest of your life. Let's get one thing straight, and this is where a lot of people get uncomfortable. A house is not an investment. I know that sounds wrong. Your parents told you otherwise. Your real estate agent definitely told you otherwise. Your bank needs you to believe otherwise. But the truth is simple, a house is a consumption item. It doesn't pay you every month. It doesn't compound automatically. It doesn't care about your financial goals. In fact, a house does the opposite. It consumes cash, property taxes, insurance, maintenance, repairs you didn't plan for, roofs, furnaces, foundations, plumbing, things that fail at the worst possible time. Every single month, your house is pulling money out of your pocket, whether you like it or not. Now, can real estate be a great investment? Absolutely. But here's the distinction most people never learn. Not all real estate is an investment. And most primary residences are not. When you buy a house, you're not just buying 4 walls and a roof. You're buying into an entire economic ecosystem. You're buying the tax policy of that state. You're buying its regulations. You're buying its job market. You're buying its debt. And most importantly, you're buying its future population trends. If people are moving in, building businesses, creating jobs, your house has a chance to grow in value. If people are leaving, companies are shutting down, and the tax base is shrinking, your house becomes a financial trap. This is where people get destroyed. They fall in love with a place. They ignore the data. And they confuse owning a home with building wealth. Those are not the same thing. And in the next section, I'm going to show you the exact framework I use to separate real estate that builds wealth from the real estate that quietly destroys it. If you want to survive in real estate, not get lucky, but actually survive, you need a framework. This is the exact lens I use to analyze any housing market, and it hasn't changed in decades. There are 5 variables that decide whether a real estate market creates wealth or quietly destroys it. First, migration. Are people moving in or moving out? People vote with their feet. When population declines, housing demand follows every single time. Second, businesses. Are companies being formed or are they leaving? Jobs create income. Income supports housing prices. When employers exit, real estate eventually collapses. Third, taxes. Taxes are not abstract. They are a recurring cost that compounds over time. Higher taxes push people out. And when people leave, the tax burden shifts to whoever remains. Fourth, regulations. How hard is it to build? How hard is it to operate a business? Overregulation suffocates growth, and growth is oxygen for housing markets. Fifth, debt and unfunded liabilities. This is the silent killer. Pension obligations, municipal debt, budget deficits. That debt doesn't disappear. It turns into future tax hikes. Now here's the part most people miss. Real estate markets don't crash overnight. They rot slowly and quietly and underneath the surface. Prices stay flat. Inventory looks tight. Everything seems fine. But the fundamentals are decaying. Young people leave. Businesses relocate. The tax base shrinks. Then one day the market breaks. And when it breaks, it doesn't fall 5 or 10%. It falls 30, 40, even 50%. That's how people get trapped, underwater, unable to sell, unable to move. And in the next section, I'm going to show you why America is heading toward a massive economic split and why some states are about to pay a very high price for ignoring these 5 signals. The United States is going through a structural economic split, and most people don't see it yet. On one side, you have states that are accelerating. Capital is flowing in. Businesses are relocating. Young workers are arriving in. Job creation is real, not government-funded, not artificial. These states are compounding growth. On the other side, you have states doing the opposite, raising taxes to plug budget holes and adding regulations to control decline, losing businesses, losing talent, losing taxpayers. And here's the key point. The gap between these two groups is widening every single year. The winning states are winning big. The losing states are not slowly declining. They're entering economic death spirals. High taxes push people out. As people leave, the tax base shrinks. To cover the shortfall, taxes go even higher. That drives out more people and more businesses. It's a feedback loop. And once it starts, it's incredibly hard to stop. This is why real estate becomes dangerous. Housing prices don't immediately reflect economic decay. They lag. They give you a false sense of security. For years, everything looks stable. Then suddenly the market cracks, and there's no bid underneath. This is how entire neighborhoods collapse. Not because of one event, but because fundamentals were ignored for too long. In the next section, I'm going to name the 5 states where every one of these warning signs is flashing red, and explain exactly why buying real estate there right now could destroy your financial future. Based on everything I've just laid out, negative migration, businesses leaving, rising taxes, suffocating regulation, and massive debt. Let me ask you a question. Can you guess which 5 states I'm talking about? Before I say a word, pause the video for a second and drop your guess in the comments below. Because if you've been paying attention, the answer shouldn't surprise you. All right, let's get into it. These are the 5 states where every single warning light is flashing red. Not 1 or 2. All of them. And if you buy residential real estate in these places right now, you're not investing. You're fighting gravity. State number 1, California. California is crushing its own middle class. Taxes are extreme. Housing is wildly disconnected from incomes. And for years now, more people have been leaving California than moving in. That matters. Because the people leaving aren't tourists or retirees. They're workers, entrepreneurs, taxpayers. The state is also sitting on enormous unfunded pension obligations. Those bills don't disappear. They turn into higher taxes. Low inventory has delayed the pain. But delayed pain is not avoided pain. State number 2, Illinois. Illinois is a textbook example of fiscal failure. Property taxes are brutal. Population is shrinking. Major employers have already left. When billionaires and Fortune 500 companies abandon a state, that's not a coincidence. It's a signal. And Illinois keeps responding to decline the same way. Raise taxes, borrow more, hope for the best. Hope is not a strategy. State number 3, New York. New York didn't change overnight, but remote work changed everything around it. High earners no longer need to be there. And they're not staying. As capital leaves, the tax burden concentrates on fewer people. That accelerates the exit. Manhattan may hold on longer, but suburbs, upstate markets, and outer areas are exposed severely. State number 4, New Jersey. New Jersey has the highest property taxes in the country. Let that sink in. Its entire housing market depends on proximity to New York, a dependency that is breaking as remote work becomes permanent. When that support beam snaps, there is no second pillar holding prices up. State number 5, Connecticut. This is what decades of bad policy look like. Businesses left. Young people left. Retirees are leaving. Prices are still high because sellers refuse to accept reality. But markets don't negotiate with denial. When inventory finally loosens, prices won't drift down. They'll reset violently. Let me say this clearly. I'm not saying these states vanish. I'm saying your capital is swimming upstream there. And upstream investing is exhausting, expensive, and usually fatal to returns. In the next section, I'll show you where the money is actually flowing and why even in winning states, buying blindly can still destroy you. So if those 5 states are on the wrong side of history, the obvious next question is this: where should you be looking instead? Because avoiding bad markets is only half the game. The other half is positioning your capital where growth actually exists. When you follow the data, not the headlines, a pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Capital is moving towards states with positive net migration, business-friendly tax policies, reasonable regulation, job creation in the private sector, governments that haven't buried themselves under decades of debt. States like Texas, Florida, Tennessee, Arizona, and North Carolina keep showing up in the data, not because they're trendy, but because they're aligned with economic gravity. Businesses are relocating there. Young workers are moving there. Capital is following both. That's not speculation. That's flow. But here's where people make their next mistake. They hear winning states and assume that means buy anything, anytime, at any price. That's wrong. Because when everyone rushes into the same markets, prices overshoot. And in some of these places, they already have. This is where timing matters. A great state doesn't save you if you wildly overpay. But here's the critical difference. In a growing state, the fundamentals can eventually bail you out. In a declining state, nothing will. Now let's talk about interest rates, because people obsess over them. Yes, rates are higher. Yes, that changes affordability. But understand this, you can refinance an interest rate. You cannot refinance a broken economy. A higher rate in a growing market is survivable. A low rate in a dying market is a trap. If rates fall later, you adjust. If the population leaves, you're stuck. The goal isn't to buy perfectly. The goal is to buy with the current, not against it. And in the final section, I'll show you how to think about real estate like a business, not an emotional decision, so you don't become another casualty of bad timing and worse fundamentals. Let me leave you with something simple and uncomfortable. Real estate doesn't care about your intentions. It doesn't care about your memories. And it definitely doesn't care about what used to work. The market only responds to fundamentals. So let me ask you a question, and be honest with yourself. If you stripped away emotion, family ties, weather, and nostalgia, would the numbers still justify your decision? Would you buy that same house if it were a business investment, not a lifestyle choice? Because that's what this really is. You're deploying hundreds of thousands of dollars. You're taking on leverage. You're accepting long-term risk. That is a business decision, whether you admit it or not. Now, a quick disclaimer before we go further. This video is not telling you to panic. It's not telling you to sell tomorrow. And it's definitely not telling you that one state is good and another is evil. And what it is telling you is this: ignoring data is expensive. If you already own property in one of the declining states, don't freeze. Have a plan. Understand your cash flow. Know your exit options. If you're thinking about buying, slow down. Look at migration. Look at job growth. Look at taxes. Look at debt. Then decide, based on facts, not fear of missing out. And if this video made you pause, if it made you rethink where you're putting your money, that's a good thing. So here's my ask. Drop a comment below. Which state are you watching right now, and why? Like this video so it reaches people who are about to make a major financial decision. Subscribe to the channel if you want clear-eyed analysis, not hype, not sugarcoating, not wishful thinking. This channel exists for one reason: to help you think strategically about money in a world that's changing fast. Because in the end, you don't get what you deserve in markets. You get what you prepare for. And the people who prepare early are the ones who survive and win.